Hello, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to use Onshape to create a wind turbine blade. So this is for the KidWind kit, and if you're interested in making a blade like this, you can watch this tutorial. So one of the key things you have to take into consideration when you're making something in a CAD program is what is the ultimate deliverable example of what this is going to be. So in this particular instance, you want a 3D printable object, so you have to take into consideration the size of the build volume with the printer you're working with. So I'm using a replicator 2. So that means that my blade design has to be from this end to this end approximately 10 inches maximum. I could possibly get maybe another inch out of it, but let's not push it. We want to make sure it does fit on the build platform. Now, as a quick overview of this part, I'm going to show you how I was able to create this, and then we'll go ahead and go through the steps one by one. So essentially I started with my right view, and I created this extrusion of the stem that's going to go into your rotor. Alright, so in the KidWind kit there is a rotor, and it's a diameter of 0.25 inches, and we're going to extrude that out first, and then we're going to add onto it with these offset planes. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4 different planes that I have offset from this right side, and I'm going to use those to incrementally change using the ellipse tool with every sketch, and then we're going to loft those together. So this is a lot different than just your general extrusion, which you're all more familiar with. So this is an extrusion here. Everything else you see here is one loft that connects all of those different sketches. And in this particular environment, now that I've created my new document with my new part studio, I can go ahead and start my first sketch. And this is one of the rare instances where I'm going to actually advocate that you start on the right side. We're going to do a new sketch here, and I'll show you why after we have the whole thing derived. It's essentially because you want your front view to show the maximum length from left to right. So let's go ahead and start on our right side here with a center point. We'll go to the right side view, and we're going to dimension that to 1/4 of an inch. And now we're going to go ahead and check that off and extrude it. I'm going to change my view here so I can kind of watch this turn into something. And you can choose whether or not you want it to come out in the right direction or the left direction. I recommend going in this direction. It just tends to work out better for me visually. And 1 inch is probably a bit long. You could even go with just 0.5 inches. That way you have more actual blade. And it would be possible, if you didn't want to make this extension out, you could also make an internal cut into the blade. But I recommend starting with this one. Later on, if you decide you want to add on a dowel to it to give you some extra length for your blade, that is a possibility. So I might make a second video to show you how to do that. Alright, so let's go ahead and start our process of creating offsets, and we can work on our sketches for the loft. So I'm going to right click on the right plane here, and I'm going to do an offset plane. And notice how it wants to flip it in the opposite direction. You want to continue to grow out to the left here, so we're going to go ahead and extend that out. Let's go 1.5 inches. Alright, so that'll be a full inch away from the edge that we have already created. And now that I have my plane set up, I'm going to go ahead and start a sketch there. It's important to note that on planes, you can actually sketch on either side of them. I could start my sketch on this side, or if I decide to flip it around, I can start my sketch on this side. It's entirely up to you. It'll extrude in either direction. So I'm going to go ahead and go to my side view now. And I'm going to go to the ellipse tool. Make sure you have this one here selected, not a circle. And I'm going to go ahead and start in the middle, so you can zoom in if you'd like. Click one time. Looks like I didn't have that selected. Click one time, pull out to the right, and you want this one to be, notice how if you pull up and away, it'll kind of get off of the axes. So you want to be lined up so it snaps to that plane. And then you can go ahead and click again up here, and you don't have to worry about dimensioning. I'm going to show you how to dimension it. So go ahead and set that up first. Now what you're going to do is you're going to click on somewhere near the top and somewhere near the bottom again, and that will give you the dimensions from the top to bottom. And we're going to set that equal. And sometimes you will notice this might be a little bit finicky. Here and down here. Pull that over. There we go. So you have to be careful not to click on these axes. So let's go ahead and take that 0.5 there. And then we're going to do from this side to this side. And we'll turn that into a 1. So we have a 1 inch by 0.5 inch. Check that off. Go back to my isometric view. And what's nice is you can actually take the end of this shape and loft it into this as well. So I'll really quickly kind of show you how that works. We're going to take this point right here and loft it into this, and now we have this kind of tapered extrusion that pops out. So I'm going to undo this loft, because what we're going to do is one continuous loft that connects all of our planes. And then we're going to offset from here. And we're going to go again in the opposite direction, and we'll go out maybe 2 inches this time. So change this to a 2. So you're going to have a few lofts, and you can determine if you want to go 2 inches, 3 inches. You are the designer, you are the creator. I'm just using a few increments here that I think will work well. And so now I'm going to start twisting the blade, and we're going to go to this sketch here. I've created another sketch on that plane. And right on top of this, I'm going to add another ellipse, but this time I'm going to zoom in. Click once in the middle. I'm going to turn it a little bit. Let's turn it this way. Alright, so now I'm turning it. And you're going to want to use the dimension tool. Click again. Make sure you have clear dimensions. And I'm going to change that to a 1.25, so it's going to get a little bit fatter. And then from here to here, I'm going to make it a little bit skinnier. So we're going to go with a 0.4. There we go. Alright, check that off. And we're going to continue this process and create a few more planes. So another offset, flip the direction, and then we want to change this into maybe another 2 inches away. And be careful of how many inches away you're going from your original extrusion. So that's another 2 inches, because right now I've got a considerable distance from the starting point. Alright. New sketch. I'm going to go to my left view again, and then we're going to put one more ellipse shape on there. Start in the middle, and we're going to keep going down in this direction. And then we're going to dimension that, and I'm going to continue to make it even thinner. I'm going to go with 0.3 now. And then we'll go from here to here, and now it's going to get quite a bit smaller. And I'm just going to go with a 0.4. Okay, so now it's starting to get much smaller. Alright, so if you ever want to measure from one of your planes back to your origin, you can always just click on those 2 points, right? So if you just click on this point and your origin, it will give you a measure of how far out you've gone. So it's 5.5 inches now that we've covered. So we can go quite a bit further out if we'd like to. So we're going to continue one more offset. If you wanted to do additional offsets and change, you could as well. That's totally acceptable. And we're going to offset this one quite a bit more. We're going to go 2.5 inches now. And we're going to go in the opposite direction. There we go. Start a new sketch. Go to your front view. Left view. And now we're going to end it with a circle point. So this will be kind of our finishing little tip that we're going to add on there. And you can make that like a 0.1. Just a nice tiny little point for it to end on. Alright, so now we're going to watch the magic happen. Let's go to isometric. So we're going to connect all these different points here. And if you want to, you can collapse and make these planes less visible. Click on that little eye and it will hide them so you can see your work. And let's go ahead and loft those. We're going to start here and loft to there, to there, to there, and finally to there. Alright, so now we can check that off, and let's go back to our isometric view. You can see we've got a nice twisted blade form that will catch some air. Cool, and if you want to change the color, you can go over here to edit the appearance and make it whatever color you would like.